All right, what's going on, people? We are back. JV Wans Dogon SS. We are here for another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. We appreciate everybody for clicking on any of our videos. We certainly appreciate the engagement. We appreciate the support. So, if this is the first time you're seeing what we do here, do your boys a big old solid. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel because we do appreciate it. We do love the support, and we look very forward to being able to engage with everybody in the comments and all of that good stuff. So, uh, major shouts out to everybody who has joined us along the way, who are members of the tribe and the community. We appreciate you. We're gonna get into it. A lot of fallout from a lot of various stories going on around the world. So the first thing that we'll kick it off with is some apparent acrimony on Drake's part. So I guess the Drake and Kendrick beef, for all intents and purposes, has kind of died down a bit. And in lieu of it dying down, there are some ancillary conversations that are taking place. Apparently, Drake has moved on. He's like, I'm done with this, on to bigger and better things with my music and my career. But that's not stopping him from, putting his tea leaves out there on the internet in terms of how he feels about how the whole situation went down. And based upon his social media activity, Drake is under the impression that some of the streams that were certified, particularly by Spotify, on Kendrick Lamar's behalf, were done so artificially. His insinuation is that they are that they are certified streams of bots trying to upplay the "Not Like Us" song, so that the gap between Kendrick's listenership and Drake's listenership, at least on Spotify, can seem greater than it actually is. So Drake is kind of crying sour grapes here. He feels like Spotify needs to go in and reevaluate the streams, particularly for the "Not Like Us" song, because he believes that a lot of it is bot enhanced. So I think that we can surmise from this that Drake at least feels as though he won this thing. And at the very least, he feels as though if he didn't win, the gap wasn't as large as it appears to be, as the perception is out there. So, just to provide a little bit of context, looking forward to hearing what you got to say about this, by the way. Uh, this says Drake seemingly accuses Spotify of certifying fake streams of Kendrick Lamar's "Not Like Us." Drake is still mad at Kendrick Lamar over their beef, and he has made that very clear with his internet presence after the battle wrapped up. While K. Dot filmed a music video and hosted a West Coast celebration as his victory lap, Drizzy's idea of a triumphant parade is shady IG stories and captions, voting in online polls about the best diss track from the feud, and most recently, some comments on Trainwreck TV's Kick stream last night. Hey, Pragmatic, can we take it back to 2022? He apparently wrote in chat, can you backdoor Eddie like Spotify backdoored the streams for that one song from that one guy? Obviously, that is a reference to Drake, and the one song apparently is a reference to the "Not Like Us" song. Of course, many took this to reference Kendrick Lamar's "Not Like Us," which has faced various accusations from Drake supporters of using bots to push fake streams. However, many of these claims have either been debunked or dismissed, as fans have brought up how the Mustard produced banger is number one on Apple Music and how you apparently can't bot on that platform. As such, these theories remain purely speculative, although it's pretty likely that both artists benefited from bots and fake streams to some degree. After all, even though neither MC probably ordered this, their supporters and fans can take matters into their own hands. For that reason, discussions around fake streams and botting turn more innocuous by the day, as it becomes clear that these songs would have been massive successes either way. Also, this whole thing doesn't really matter as much as the beef itself, and both Drake and Kendrick Lamar are finding it hard to move on from it. The Six God just released two summer bangers that even one of his biggest haters proclaimed as smash hits, but it seems like it's not enough for him. So here was Drake on Academic Stream where he said, can we take it back to 2022 and backdoor 80 like Spotify backdoor the streams for that one song from that one guy. So that's Drake's apparent side of the story. He feels like the streams were upsold by Spotify, and that bots were making it seem as though that song was getting the amount of streams that it actually did, uh, uh, was getting the streams that it did, when in actuality, it probably wasn't that much of a gap. That Not Like Us probably didn't move the actual units that the streaming numbers would otherwise suggest. So, do you think that this is sour grapes on Drake's part? Him and his supporters who are suggesting that this was a bot and AI influenced perceived result, specifically when it comes to the Not Like Us song? What do you make of some of these assertions on his part?
I feel like it's just typical passive aggressive Drake. He just needs to take the L, and I think people will respect him more if he just took this on the chin and just said, "I'm gonna get in the lab and do my Drake thing." He was better off doing that. But this whole charade of none of this stuff is bothering me, him trying to meme his way out of this. Now with this statement here to his partner, DJ Academics, where those two are in cahoots. To me, this just screams that much like how he always move, it's just some typical sucker stuff, bro. And I don't respect it. If you're dealing with major labels, they're all buying streams. So he's bought streams before, much like how the article said. And I'm sure Kendrick's label has their own streaming department where they make sure that things get boosted. You remember Dat Piff back in the day, bro?
Yeah,
Oh man, it was a
yeah,
movie. And so I didn't like that they basically held a monopoly on the mixtape game at that particular time, but you could clearly tell that these streams weren't genuine on some of these releases. Some of these guys was like, well, who the hell is this guy? And how does he have 500,000? But my favorite artist only got 50. So you could tell that people were buying that. Same thing with World Star now, where people, I don't know how it works on YouTube, but buying views. So, it's just part of promotion nowadays, unfortunately. So major labels that's behind Kendrick, I'm sure there was some type of whatever, some oomph behind it, but that thing had so much for momentum that, yeah, maybe a little breeze pushed it a little bit further, but that thing was already moving on its own train. And, I know I'm responsible for, you know, a lot of streams, not on Spotify, but on other platforms. So it's played everywhere. I've heard it played at elementary schools, graduations, weddings. I'm sure it's being played at bar mitzvahs. So, yeah. So at this juncture, bro, you can't dispute this hit, bro. You just got to take this L. And again, I would respect him more if he, took this and was like, "Hey, man, good round, but this is a career long type of thing." And if he took it like that, then I would respect him more. But again, we're dealing with Drake here, and him doing stuff that I respect is slim to none. So, what are your thoughts here on Sir Drake claiming that Kendrick Lamar is out here buying streams? What are your thoughts?
when this first started and we first talked about it here, kind of giving our opinions of it, I remember saying way back in the beginning that my belief was that Drake was going to be perceived to be the winner.
Mm,
I thought that Drake was going to be declared the winner in the long run, because my thinking was Drake is such a powerful force of mainstream machinery. He's got such a large machine behind him, and he makes so much mainstream mass appeal music. He's all over the place with the number one hits, and he's got all of the jingles and the hotline blings and the, you know, for freeze and all of the songs. He's got all of these features. He's everywhere in terms of his mass appeal, that I thought he would be declared the winner because he would make the most jingle worthy, catchy, mass appeal songs.
Mhm.
And I feel like in this era with microwave music, people have deprioritized substance in music and have sort of upsold just catchiness and singy songy melodic type music, which is what Drake specializes in. And I thought because he specialized in what the masses largely respond to, he'd be the winner. Not because he made the better music, but because his approach to making music is what resonates most with the audience.
Mhm.
So I thought that he would be declared the winner. Now, I was pleasantly surprised to see that I was incorrect about that. And apparently, the audience seems to sort of not be jiving with Drake's side of this, especially on the music front. But I think on Drake's end, he's probably thinking along those lines. He's
Mhm.
got all of these hits. He's got the right foot stomp, left foot, whatever that song is called, Tootsie Slide. So Drake has got all of the Tootsie Slides, and he's got all of the hotline blings, and he's got the Rihanna features. He's got all of the DJ Khaled features. He's all
Mhm.
over the place with the God's Plans, and he's just got all of the mass appeal songs, the Sexy Reds, My Sexy Baby Daddy, and all of these other songs. So he's just making all of the dogs musics and all of the mass appeal, cotton candy music, as Joe Budden likes to call it. No, Joe Budden calls it Chuck E. Cheese rhymes.
Well, yeah.
So Drake is all over the place making the Chuck E. Cheese rhymes, and the audience loves their Drake Chuck E. Cheese music. They love the easily consumable, mass produced, GMO laden, Chuck E. Cheese pizza. That's what they like. You stick it in the oven for 5 minutes and it's done. Boom. That's what the audience loves. So Drake is probably thinking to himself, "Hey man, I make the stuff that the people want better than he does. Why should I believe that there wasn't some bot, enhanced trickery going on?" In his mind, he probably thinks that he did win, but there was some other kind of tomfoolery taking place that propelled Kendrick from a numbers standpoint to victory.
Mhm.
Because for no other reason, he probably really felt as though he had the numbers angle of this in his back pocket. He was going to be able to make the songs that snapped the most in the club. He was going to be able to make the songs that the women liked the most. He was going to make the songs with the most memorable, catchy rhymes that he probably didn't write. So, all of those things he had working in his favor, he's probably looking at the landscape of the listenership and saying, "I got this in the bag." And when it was revealed that he, in fact, didn't have it in the bag,
Mhm.
he's finding it difficult to reconcile the defeat. And so now he's kind of, gasping for air, trying to figure out what the hell happened. I would imagine, this is speculation on my part. Obviously, I don't know Drake, but this is just my opinion. I feel as though he's looking at it similar to the way that I initially analyzed this,
Mhm.
saying, "I'm the jingle guy. I'm the singy songy melodic guy. I'm the guy who makes all of the catchy songs. I'm the guy who makes the singing ballads. I'm the guy who makes the songs that the ladies like. So I can take this approach into this battle, and despite being up against an adversary who's superior in every way in terms of lyrics and rhymes and rapping and actual hip hop stuff, I can
Mhm.
still win that because, you know, I know, despite what everyone says in terms of what hip hop people like, what they're actually going to respond to." And it looks like he was wrong. But he's probably thinking in his mind, "I'm the numbers guy. I'm the numbers king in this equation. And if I'm the numbers king in this equation, how can the numbers king possibly lose a numbers battle?" It just doesn't make sense. To him, it's not computing. So I can understand how his brain is processing this, but you can't fake the funk. And like I said, I'm happy I was wrong because it just looks like what did end up resonating with the people is authenticity and actual music, which is backed by what the semblance from a core standpoint of the culture is supposed to be. And it just looks like he's trying to figure out ways to reconcile the result. And his latest attempt to reconcile the result is bot upstreams on Spotify. I think he's going to have to bark up a different tree.
Well, I mean, he's a narcissist, an egomaniac, and he's got one of the biggest, if not the largest, ego that the rap game has ever seen. And because of how entitled he is, how much backing he knows that he has, he's been going around doing whatever the hell he want for the last decade or so. As far as railroading people's careers, taking people's songs, just having a whole fake persona. And for him to believe in that persona, again, you have to be on some next level type of narcissism and, egocentric type behaviors. And so, with this being such a humbling experience, he can't compute it. And so, we're watching cognitive dissonance in real time. In 4K, this guy is melting in front of everybody, and to me, it's hilarious. And this is just because, again, when you build your foundation on sand like this guy did, by getting handouts, again, stealing all type of stuff, faking the funk, yeah, he had the biggest property on the lot, but again, he used slave labor. He built it on a crappy foundation, no integrity. So as soon as the first weathering storm came and hit it for real, yeah, it's collapsing. And so, yeah, and he was out there in front of the yard, in front of the lawn, beating his chest, talking about something. Yeah, I got the best house. I got the biggest house. Check me out. Nothing can take this down. And yeah, and he got his stuff wrecked. So again, I'm here for that. And I was hoping that Kendrick would do this, and he did it. Right now, um, it's persona non grata to be around here posting Drake stuff and being like, yeah, what I'm saying, you're team Drake right now because people gonna look at you sideways. I just saw a TikTok last night where KD was spotted at a Drake party. Then in the comment section, people was like, "Ain't no party like a Drake party." Ain't and they're out here calling him out like, "Hey, bro, why you out there?" But honestly, KD's been having a strange off season. I'm not too sure what he's got going on, from shooting jumpers in the club and other weird things he's been spotted doing. But yeah, man, Drake, this to people, this should be a cautionary tale and an example. Nobody's out here being Drake like, let's be honest. But we do have our own egos and our own ways of not being humble. And sometimes life is going to come around and give you a weather storm that's going to show your resolve and see how humble you really are. And sometimes you really got to take the L and admit the L and pick yourself up and go in the right direction instead of kicking and screaming and hollering foul, because nobody likes that person. And so again, Drake is just being that person that nobody likes yet again, just in another fashion. So he's going to continue to tell on himself. So long as he doesn't have solid integrity, he's going to keep making these sleight of hand, passive aggressive moves. So best of luck to you, Drake. But it's always Team Kendrick over here. So kick rocks.
Yeah, shouts out to Joe Budden. I referenced him earlier. I was listening to a recent episode of his podcast, and he was talking about how um, Drake really was the symbolization of the true battle going on between these two, which was culture people versus numbers people. I'm paraphrasing there. You can go ahead and check out Joe Budden's latest episode of his show. But he put it pretty succinctly, and I do agree. And like I said before, I was pleasantly surprised because generally speaking, and we don't just see this in music, we see this as well in sports too, where the modicum of success basically just becomes like any modicum of success, whether we're talking about sports, music, or anything else, tends to get trivialized down to numbers. So it's like, what did this person do? What was their contribution? And none of that is relevant if the other person is putting up better numbers. It's the LeBron factor. We got ushered into this era of counting the stat sheet because LeBron was putting up his numbers all the time, and so the idea was LeBron has to be better because look at the stat sheet, look at his numbers. And like you see the same thing in music too, where it's like who sold the most records, who's doing the best on streams, who has the most number one streams on these platforms. And so that's what ends up getting attributed to better. And there's a conflation taking place that really doesn't actually exist because numbers and prolifery does not necessarily equate to substance and what's better. And what we're seeing taking place with this particular situation is the universe being put back into its proper order, in which there is a separation between numbers and substance. And when it comes to a direct beef, so to speak, numbers are less relevant than actual substance. And like I said before, I was pleasantly surprised to see that substance won out because I was someone who was cynical and believed that Drake was going to be the winner in all of this
You
because
were.
he just do the big he do the biggest numbers. And I wasn't rooting for Drake in all of this,
Sure. Sure.
obviously.
Yeah.
It was just my belief in the culture or lack thereof. I just look at the culture and I have less and less faith in it overall. And I think all people care about is, consuming, biodegradable, music, even at the expense of authenticity. So I'm glad to see that I was wrong in that regard. And I do agree with Joe Budden when he says that it really wasn't about Drake. It was really about culture versus numbers. Drake just happened to be the linchpin on the number side of it. I'm just glad that, at least in this standpoint, in this instance, the universe was corrected. So um, I'm glad to see that it played out that way. And I, like you, just would, I do think that Drake would serve himself well if he just said, it is what it is. And now I'm going to go back to making my jingles and my pre-written, ghost-written rhymes.
Yeah. And the awesome part about it is he'll never be humble enough to do that. And so he's going to continue to wreck himself until perpetuity. So, I'm going to enjoy it. It, this type of demeanor, this type of attitude, it doesn't belong within the culture. So, so long as he keeps this mess up, so long as he exposes himself. So keep it up, Drake. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep it
You're actually doing the world a tremendous service there, Drake.
up.
Helping us all out, man. Shouts out to Kendrick. Shouts out to Kendrick. Shouts out to Joe Budden too, man. Killing it
You.
in the podcast game.